Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Issei and his sister betrayed by world? Before I start, please do support for more awesome content, and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the DanzyDanz for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story. Link in the description. Let's start this video. Life was going fine for a young boy named Issei. Full-time high schooler, part-time devil. Could have been much better. It'd be much better if he didn't have to experience how it felt to be knocking on death's door, twice. Mostly because of the nothingness he felt or saw when his soul actually entered it. Rainer did kill him, made no mistake, and he had been in the absolute void that was waiting for him. A jaded blackness where neither heaven nor hell existed. Limbo or something. Some waiting room for recently deceased souls. He didn't know what might have happened if he didn't get lucky and got resurrected by Gremory, a devil hottie. In fact, he didn't want to think about it, and he didn't want to find out. Some things are better to be left unknown, and his afterlife was part of it. So for all it was worth, even if he had to do menial assignments like handing out questionable flyers that looked like it was made by an elementary kid who had learned how to scribble weird circles and stars and even weirder symbols, Issei wasn't going to complain. Well, maybe a little. But he believed even by doing this errand boy duties like spreading out these flyers, there must be something deeper that his senior devils wanted him to learn, like in Karate Kid. Perhaps the intention was not to promote the devil's services, but for him to learn the layout of Ko Town and how to navigate it quickly, since he didn't have the ability of flight or teleportation. In truth, it really was because Ria's whole peerage aside from him were all busy with their contractors. But because of his delusion, Issei nearly doubled his quota that day, and got quite a praise from his bombshell of a master. And that was his daily routine as a newbie reincarnated devil. As a servant and pawn of Ria's Gremory. And it was a definite improvement over how he'd spent his pastime, even if he wasn't able to spend as much time as he'd like with his two brain-dead idiots, that were Matsuda and Motohama. Well, as long as they didn't suddenly break off their friendship with him, Issei thought he'd manage. It was about time for him to learn how to manage time and relationships too, so that was another thing he'd never have learned if he didn't get revived. With an audible yawn, Issei walked down the night streets of Kuo. It was past midnight and the moon was nowhere to be seen, hidden away by the gloomy clouds. This time, he took the long route to avoid going through the town's park, as that was where he kept getting got by those bastard fallen angels, one of which happened to have successfully killed him, while the other very nearly succeeded. Ria said they didn't have any other excuses as they burnt their last when that watch's face. Fedora guy told him he didn't know he wasn't a stray, which was bullshit. Bastard already knew. Even an idiot like him knew that Fedora guy already knew. Rias definitely had known as well, and she was planning to properly eliminate those hooligans the next time they dared to attack him. Which, in all honesty, made Issei feel a little bummed out, as he felt like he was the bait. He even had this suspicion that Rias let Fedora guy strike him first so she could use him. Otherwise, how did she appear all of a sudden? But then again, she was a devil. It was in her nature to exploit everything, and well, Issei knew he didn't have much value yet. Compared to the rest of his seniors, he figured he had to be the most expendable, but at least he still had some value. Having a bit of it was much better than having none and being constantly belittled. Damn, this was getting pathetic. Angry with himself and further steeling his determination and drive to become as strong as possible, Issei increased his pace to sleep so that tomorrow would arrive sooner. The sooner it arrived, the sooner he could train. The sooner he got stronger, the sooner he'd get his harem. The streets were mostly empty. One or two patrols here and there, all of which he snuck around because he didn't want to cause any trouble. It prolonged his walk, but the takeaway was that he felt like a ninja, lurking from the shadows, avoiding the guards, raising his stealth, only less cooler and probably looked silly from a bystander's point of view. A block away from his house, Issei noticed someone's motorcycle parked next to a lamppost. The S logo made it obvious that it was a Suzuki, but he didn't know the type of bike it was. But it was black with ash-gray frame and looked cool, and that was all his guy brain needed to decide that yes, this indeed would the object of desire that he'd splurge his first pay on after he got his license. Why? Because logically, he should have a better chance of getting chicks if he had a cool bike than without one. If he was a geek of motorbikes, he'd be able to tell that it was a V-twin Suzuki SV650 Roadster. But he didn't, so Issei didn't know jack. A man was sitting on top of the bike, looking distantly onto a wall on the opposite side. Dark hair. Looked brown under the lamplight. Slender build. Probably 20-ish. Clean-shaven. Okay-ish face, which meant he was more good-looking than Issei would want to admit, but at least he was not irritatingly Prince Charmingly handsome like Kiba. brown eyes with a scary look. Dull gray smoke seeped out of his lips as the man seemed to notice he was being stared at, and his head perked up to look at him. This was going to be awkward, Issei thought, looking away. He quickened his walk and pretended that he was not walking faster as he walked around the biker. Poorly, as it should be noted, because the biker guy did not buy it. He tossed the cigarette on the road, ground it with his boot as he said, "Heya, lil bro. Oh great, he's drunk. Time to move on. You're just gonna walk past your older brother like that? Damn, I'm hurt." Issei paused. Huh? Wait, you're talking to me? Look around, doofus, the biker guy said, but Issei somehow could tell he was using a joking tone. Who else is here other than you and me? Alright, this was unusual. Issei was pretty certain he didn't have any siblings. Is this a prank? Who put you up for this? My birthday was last month, you know. Yeah, I know. A mildly disconcerting reply. That raised his stalker alert, which he never ever expected to be raised ever in the first place, and his gut feeling made Issei to wisely inch away. He thought he'd liked it if he had a Yandra stalker, but he never thought it'd be a fucking biker. But if it is a prank, then I sure as hell don't know which one of us is the one getting pranked, but I am telling you nothing but the truth. You have a weird accent. The biker shrugged and spread his hands. I've been to a lot of places. My accents are in tatters. Issei backed away a little. He couldn't sense anything supernatural from the biker guy, but he feared he might be too weak to sense anything like Rias or Kiba, or anyone that wasn't him. I know, the self-proclaimed brother continued as he dug out a wallet out of his brown biker jacket. I get why you're looking at me weird, so here. Some proof. Issei gingerly took a glimpse at the squarish white card, and did indeed notice that the man shared a similar family name as his. I didn't buy it. And I ain't blaming you, the biker said, nodding to himself as he put back his ID card and his wallet to his pocket, giving it a few taps to make sure it was there. And it's a good thing you don't. I'd be worried if you do. Issei narrowed his eyes. What's your angle here, funny biker man? I gotta tell you that a biker and a high schooler talking on the street at this late of an hour don't look good to the public. Ha! Unexpectedly, the man seemed pleased with his threat, even smirking a rather nice smile, as if he was proud of him. Good. That's good. You've got guts. I was worried you'd lost them when you got gutted the first time by that fallen angel. His face gradually shifted from a friendly conversationalist into that of a deducing detective, whereas Issei felt nothing but the crawling dread, climbing its way up to his throat. This guy knew. Now don't be scared. 7 billion people on this earth and I'd still be the last one to ever think of hurting you. I'm just upset. Upset because I just confirmed that you were indeed attacked. And by a damn fallen nonetheless. Look, I better get going. You're starting to freak me out. Wait, throw me a bone here, bud, he sighed, relaxing his tense look, scratching his brown hair that, now that Issei paid more attention to it, did look similar to what he had minus the 2 short ponytails. See here, we've got a lot to catch up. I wish I can just magically show you the proof, but I'm pathetically hopeless when it comes to magic. You can't use magic? Nah. Can you? Issei gingerly shook his head. I don't even have enough to teleport. Hey. You me both, the biker grinned, chuckling a little. Runs in the blood, eh? Issei gulped. Deep down, he'd like to have a brother. He knew his parents would love to as well. He knew of their predicament, and their poor luck. So if this guy was his brother, then how come his parents never mentioned him at all? If you're my brother, then why did mom or dad never talk about you? We don't even have any pictures. I was photoshopped. Bullshit. Yeep, the biker chuckled. Well, because they're not meant to remember. And neither do you, the biker said with sincerity. Issei furrowed his brows. Wait, our memory was wiped? Why? It's a long story. A really, really long story, and he readjusted his motorcycle, rode it properly, and pulled down the footrests on both sides as he looked at him with an earnest look. But if you're willing to listen, I'll tell you everything. Whether you end up trusting me or not, I'll leave that for you. Issei paused for a moment, until he continued with an almost villainous grin, revealing his true nature. But if you don't hop on, then I'll have you know. I know where you live, and I'll keep pestering you until you cave in, so either you do it now or you'll do it later eventually, lil bro. Issei shuddered. He was getting blackmailed by this stranger. That moment, he thought that if this man was indeed his brother, then he was more devilish than him. Break. Issei wanted to admit it openly, and he wished he could, but only once he had determined the truth of this apparent long-lost brother of his. But riding a bike during night time was unbelievably soothing. The wind ruffling his clothes almost sent him to a trance, and the darkness and the coolness of the night was always palpable for a devil like him. It was only midway that he realized he had no clue where this guy was taking him, and that he might have just been voluntarily kidnapped by a stranger pretending to be his relative. Oh my Satan, how am I this goddamn stupid? He considered leaping off. It'd hurt. It likely hurt like a motherfucker. The asphalt was not made of the ideal for him to smash his body against, but it was the only thing he could think of other than messing with his driver and likely send the two crashing. But the biker pulled over before he could actualize his escape plan. It was next to a pier, not far from the warehouse where Rias showed him his first real-life battle against a real enemy that wanted to kill him and the devils. The place where he watched a mammoth-sized monstrosity, half woman half something, fired lasers out of her nipples that could melt steel beams. The crashing waves were oddly calming, and the ocean itself was effortlessly beautiful. No wonder this was one of the go-to spots for couples. Wait a minute, you're not going to do weird stuff to me, right? That, the man pointed his gloved pointing finger at his face pinpointedly, is disgusting. Don't ever bring that up. You're gonna make me throw up. Alright, good. Just making sure. Alright, the biker nodded, and walked towards the open pier. Several ships were parked there, seemingly bouncing up and down as the waves came and left. The salty ocean wind breezed by, and Issei struggled to recall the last time he had ever gone to a beach. Beach swimsuits, boobies, and bikinis. Next summer, he definitely would ask Rias to go on a beach holiday. Idly, whilst dreaming and drooling of Rias and Aquino in skimpy swimsuits, Issei blindly followed the biker as he walked towards the end of the pier. His night dreaming was put to a halt when the biker spoke. I got a call a few days ago, he began. From Azazel. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't. But if you haven't, then he's basically the Satan for the Gremory. Issei froze. And no, I'm not working for them. Not anymore, he growled, considering what happened to you. Odd. That anger felt genuine. Issei was no linguist when it came to body language, but it felt genuine. And weirdly enough, he felt kinda happy that someone got mad because of the misfortune that smacked him in the face and blew a hole in his stomach. Long story short, he continued, stopping by to rest against the fence. He, Zazel, told me there has been some miscommunication and one of his lackeys thought keeping an eye on you meant putting a light spear up your ass. And his face went grim. And killed you. Well, I got better. That you did, the biker smirked, appreciative of his lax response, and eased down. I do get a bit intense from time to time, so don't mind me whenever that happens. I'll try, dude, but you really looked like you wanted to kill someone. Likely because I wanted to. But anyway, and he moved on without fanfare like he didn't say a word, basically. I didn't like that. So I flew here. As fast as I could. I needed answer. Had to see with my own eyes. Had to see you. Issei blinked. And now that you do, I'm real fucking pissed. Really pissed, he muttered. Why? Issei decided to ask. I mean, let's say you are my brother, which you maybe are, you well, I mean, sorry to say, but you were never around. It passed only in a flash, a moment of weakness, but the biker's face softened, almost like he was hurting, but decided to cover it all up with a grin. See, the thing is, I have, he said. Not always, but I've been around. Sometimes once a year. Rarely twice. But I tried to make time. Why though? Issei replied, still very much skeptical. Getting deceived by Rainier had sparked his trust issues, and he was not going to repeat the same mistake he did. Why didn't you just, I dunno, stay? Why did you ever leave me and Mom and Dad in the first place anyway? If you are what you're saying you are, because I wanted to protect you. You and Mom and Dad. From what? He spread his arms like he was about to hug a giant bear. From this. All of this. This fucking cobwebs of supernatural bullshit. Issei remained skeptical. You have a gift, buddy, he explained. Sacred gear or whatever the fuck. Nowadays they get less picky with their picks. A grumble cut his sentence. I've seen the lengths people have gone through just to get one of you fuckers on their side. They'll use anyone you're close with. Parents, family, friends, girlfriends, he shrugged. Pets. Anything that they can use to rope you into this mess for their own benefits. Hell, that's how they got me. This time, Issei's quietness was contemplative. Prez immediately came to his mind. It'll be easier to get a fallen to return your real memories. The ones you have currently are a bit tampered. Yours and Mom's and Dad's. Well, wait, how can I tell if you won't just replace my memories with the ones that's convenient for you? Because you're no longer human, ain't you? The man pointed out. Memories of you as a human can be overwritten, but not the ones you have after you've turned into a devil. Devil magic and one that the angels or fallens use. They cancel one another. Like oil and water. Okay, Issei awkwardly scratched his hair. Honestly, he'd expected to get lunged in by a fallen angel or other variation of an ambush. Perhaps a rogue exorcist thinking he was fresh meat, but not this. He's got a damn brother. He still hadn't gained his complete trust. Perhaps this guy was just a shapeshifter spewing bullshit, but Issei really wanted a brother that he'd consider believing a lie just to be able to live in it. But first, he had to know if this brother of his shared the same vibe as his. Ass or titties? Huh, just answer it. Issei demanded vehemently. Ass or titties? What? What's up with you? Well, it's either. It's gotta be their personality. Issei had never felt this great of a disappointment in his life. Nah, I'm just messing with ya. See, ass or tits or thighs or face, whatever your preferences, I like it most when it's balanced. Balanced? Yeah. A complete package. Or semi-complete. If you get to choose, would you rather have a girl with tig-bitty titties but a pancake for ass, a gal with ass but part of the itty-bitty titty comedy, or a well-rounded one whose balance is just right? Issei's face brightened. The moonlight bounced off his teeth as he smiled widely upon this new realization. Too long had he been fixated on one specific asset of a girl that he'd forgotten there was more to truly appreciate. But he didn't stop there. And then there's the nape, the small of their back, that delicate line of a fit gal, the contour of her abs. The female body is the god's greatest fucking art, brother, and the best thing is, there's a hell lot of them. This world may have plenty of resource crises, food, water, money, but a fine female figure ain't ever gonna be one. And so he said, and that gave birth to a rejuvenated sense of admiration that came directly from Issei, who had never been so inspired and, most importantly, gladdened that this person that might be his brother was also an avid admirer of the Lord's finest creation. Sensei, but there's one thing you gotta remember, bud. As a man. You're a man, aren't you? How old are you again? 18? 18 this year, Issei said proudly. Right, and considering the world you are in now, you are a man responsible for your actions. And all actions have consequences, you following me? Issei blandly nodded, waiting expectantly for the enlightenment he might provide in his next sentences. What's the one thing I have to remember? He lifted a gloved single finger. Never fall in love with a woman for her body. The biker waited, letting that statement sink in. Let Issei ruminate on that sentence and understand its meaning, before he eventually continued with an intense stare, almost as though he wanted to drill his point into his head. You hear? You can kiss, sleep, suck, fuck, do whatever you want with them, but always remember where you live, brother. Just as there are dangerous men out here, there are just as many women, and oftentimes, they're levels more craftier than us. You've experienced it firsthand, haven't you? A cute girl asked you out and killed you later? Yeah. Issei gulped, and nodded. He didn't particularly like remembering that moment. There's a lot of people like her, Issei, and all of them will have different intentions. Ultimately, they want to use you. And don't get me wrong, don't pride yourself because they want you. Because it's not you that they want, but the thing in your hand. I get that this is difficult to process, but whenever a girl, a guy, anyone, approaches you, stop and think for a sec. Ask yourself why they're coming on to you. Is it because they want to know you better, be chummy with you in general, or is it because they want to have control of the Longinus? He let another moment pass. Let him process. And waited until he knew Issei had did just so. You got me? Yeah. Issei cleared his throat. I hear you, the biker grunted, nodding. Both to his little brother and himself. Seeing that Issei had gotten the point, and was evidently a bit hurt and downtrodden because of the possibility of having to guess everyone he'd ever known and would know in the future, he suddenly slapped him in the arm with a grin. Now don't be so glum, chum. There will come a day where you'll meet the one. Or more. Maybe many more, who knows? The supernaturals are certainly more open to polygamy. He shrugged lightheartedly, wiggling his eyebrows hintfully, reinstilling the much-needed fuel to relit Issei's ambition, to build himself the ultimate harem. You just need to be more careful with who you trust. Don't be gullible, aight? That's a dangerous habit you gotta get rid of pronto. He then sighed, and gave Issei a smile that oddly brought an unfamiliar, yet familiar sense of warmth. A caring smile, he supposed, like the one he'd often received from his father. I can't hear you getting maimed again, ya hear? Yeah, Issei nodded weakly a few times, before nodding firmly with resolve. Yeah, I won't. Never again. Thanks, Sojiro-san. Break. It was 5 in the morning when Sojiro Haida first learned what had befallen his little brother, and it was 5 in the morning when he arrived at Japan with an unholy rage. You fucking swore. Those 3 words replayed itself like a broken record as he made his way to the small town of Ko, constantly on repeat until it had become his chant. It was the only thing that was in his mind as he walked inside a certain hotel in a certain district, politely checking in, calmly entered a room, and slammed the door with a bang that shook the frame. It was a rather well-lit room for a room in a place like this, but that should be well expected as it was Azazel's temporary office, and the leading governor of the Gregory Research Institution was presently seated behind a desk stacked with his dubious inventions, ranging from your everyday accessories such as ringlets, bracelets, rings that could either shoot fireballs, turn yourself invisible, and plenty other functions that defied humans' law of physics, to the more straightforward one like a gun. But Sojiro had no interest in any of this eccentric inventor's inventions, and Azazel had seen this coming from a mile away. Before you get angry, let me explain that this all happened because of, I already am, bastard. You ain't got shit to explain, Sojiro seethed, his hands crossed, but not as cross as him. I don't care how it happened. You swore you'd leave him out of this. I didn't strangle people because one day you can get lax and let shit like this happen. Azazel stretched his dress shirt's collar. It was Splinter Group. He tried to reason, they acted outside of my approval and, Sojiro pounded his fist against the wall. Then you were a shit leader but a leader nonetheless. Like I said, I don't care why or how it happened. All I know is that one of your cretins killed him, and now he's a devil. Azazel took a deep sigh. I don't know what else to tell you other than I'm sorry. When I first heard of it, I also got my ass here as soon as I was able to, but it was already too late evidently. He cleared his throat. What else do you want me to do here? Grovel on your feet? He frowned his perpetual scowl, and stated his demand. I want their names. Afterwards, we're quitting. Wait, we're? Let's not be too rash here. Sojiro walked up to Azazel's desk and planted both his fists against the wooden surface, causing the trinkets to shake. We took your offer because you said you can ensure his safety. Now I know you've lost a lot more people than I have, but that doesn't mean shit to me. It doesn't mean shit to us. He died, Zazel. Died. As if it can't get any worse than that, he's a devil. But if it wasn't for the devil then your people would be busy burying their own today. Azazel couldn't find a proper response to say. He had made his mind and there was no changing it. Money wouldn't work and neither would women. Fishing for his sense of loyalty wouldn't work either as Sojiro had always been more of an external help that stuck around. He only regretted that it had to happen now out of all times. He's roped into this world now, and it doesn't seem he's leaving any time soon. And clearly we can't rely on you anymore, so we're keeping an eye on him. Alright, I get it, no need to make me feel shittier, huffed Azazel, now massaging his temples. I'll write you their names, just let's not let this unprecedented misfortune completely burn our bridge, HM? We're entering turbulent times, you see it'd be beneficial. Zazel, you better shut your mouth now before I force-feed you that ashtray. Right, yikes. Bad time. Azazel made a mental note to reapproach him in the future once his mood was well stabilized. Is that all? Need some rooms to stay? Nah, we'll manage, Sojiro griped, but in spite of his anger, there was some shred of not sadness, but rather disappointment. He was disappointed it had to end like this. I'll be seeing you again, Zazel. I hate to split, but this crossed the line. He didn't slam the door on his way out this time. Azazel failed to find any relief in it, as he knew he had consigned those people to death in order to appease that guy's justified wrath. Welp, there goes 2 of my assets. Azazel sighed, hard, almost like he was trying to deflate himself as he slumped to his desk face first. Cocabil, you buffoon erg. Groaning, cursing his laxness due to the ongoing peace, Azazel thought he might as well fetch himself another woman or 2 and some whiskey before calling it a day in hope for the best. Although those didn't prevent Azazel from wondering what could have been if he wasn't much of a procrastinator and an avid pacifist. Could that have kept Cocabil from rebelling? But more importantly, would that have prolonged the service of those twins? Perhaps, even landing him another? A demon, a witch, and a dragon in the making. Could he have had them all? Break. Sojiro parked his mint-condition motorbike inside the garage of their safe house. It wasn't much of a safe house, however, as it looked like just any other house in the block, and the Hayatas simply treated it as such. They would be staying here for a long while, after all, considering the recent unfortunate events that had befallen their baby brother. The moment he swung open the door, he was immediately greeted with the cold, steely gaze of an upset woman. Standing a head shorter to Sojiro, Hayata Haruyuki had longer and fashionably wavier hair compared to her brother's shoulder-length straight hair, but nonetheless had the same color and rich darkness, although she'd normally have it on a messy bun when she wasn't trying to impress anyone and was lounging on wherever place they had to hide in for their mission. She only looked dolled up purely because she had to buy the groceries today if they didn't want an empty fridge. Suji, she said, her stern tone and her naturally low contralto betraying her pretty face. It was nonetheless a welcome change from all of those forced high-pitched voices in that brothel masked as a hotel. "How'd it go?" "As well as you can expect," he replied, taking off his shoes to slip into his brown, fuzzy, soft house slippers. "We ain't working for him anymore." "Good," she huffed, uncrossing her arms, but didn't look anywhere near satisfied with his answer. "Did you break his arm at least? Pluck any of his wings?" He eyed his sister with a certain kind of look that questioned her sanity, and thanked himself, for choosing not to bring her along despite her protest. "Haru, I get that you're mad, but he's been a good employer. He fucked up. That's to be expected from time to time. His fuck-up caused our brother's death, Suji." She narrowed her brown eyes, a common physical trait among the Haidu. Theirs, however, were a lot colder than their parents or brother, honed by experience, and tempered with the constant annoyances the world had thrown their way. "True, but he's still kickin'. That's the important thing. Making sure he doesn't slip up big time is the next step." She clicked her tongue. "Tsk, he got off too lightly. We can still get some use out of him in the future that will help Issei's growth. He's a crazy technomancer, but he's not without merits. And besides, you want to waste all the time we've spent helping him just like that? Sounds like a waste to me." Haru hated how Sojiro seemingly always knew what to say to make her see things his way, and agreed to it. Then again, he read people better than her, and his hospitable smile could fool a genius detective despite looking like a delinquent that beat up biker gangs for fun. Haru, on the other hand, would beat up bike gangs for fun despite the fact that she looked like she came from a Korean drama scene. "Fine. But the next time I see his face, I'm handing it to him. Sometimes, I wonder which of us is actually the mad dog." Suji shrugged off Haru's smack to his back as the two made their way to the living room, only to slump at their three-seater sofa as the jet lag finally hit. The twins let out a lengthy sigh as they melted further into their couch. They had disagreed on many things, but one thing they could agree on was that they both hated summer, and that dreaded season had been peering in from the corner like a rabid superfan tailgating their idol. "Did he give you any names at least?" "No, but he gave the name of a place." Haru lifted her head off the cushion, and scowled. "A place? He's still making us take care of his mess? Even after we quit?" "You know how he is," Suji chuckled. "He saw plenty of himself and how Azazel handled things, how that governor never let an opportunity slip. It was how he bagged him, and his sister. But we get to unload, at least." "Well, you'll get to unload your stress on them." "What? You're not coming?" "I'm planning on meeting our lil bro tonight," he said, nodding to himself, thinking of what he should say and how he should approach their boy brother. "Unless you want to tag along." As he had expected, Haruyuki didn't show much excitement at the idea. Rather, she showed a somewhat melancholic look, remorseful, rather, as if she'd be ashamed to show her face to the brother they had long since, in a way, abandoned. "I think I'll pass." "Yeep. That's why I'll go talk to him. You go ahead and break legs. You have my blessings to take my share." Haru exhaled sharply in amusement. "All right, but I don't want to come home late and be served any of your kitchen abominations. And don't you step in my kitchen." "Your kitchen? Who died and made you queen?" "No one, but I will if I have to eat your crappy food. And it's my kitchen because I can cook without burning our stuff." She got a point there. Yeah, I'll order takeaways." Not like he liked to cook anyway, and Haru had always been the better cook, blessed with their mother's gift. It was a win-win for him, but he didn't want to make it too obvious. Satisfied, thinking her brother had to yield something and therefore losing the brother-sister game, Haru stretched out her hands and legs, then promptly stood up with both her hands on her hips. "What are you plotting?" "Lunch, stupid." "I don't plot. I'm not you." "Right. You don't have the brain for it. Or the patience." Haru groaned. "You're so funny." "You know that?" "Funny? Very funny, man. I'm really not. I'm the unfunniest guy there is. I'm really mean, but people always think I'm joking." Haru stared at him quizzically, eyes squinted, debating whether he was saying the truth, or he was just being his idiot self. She settled on the latter, and then huffed a dismissive sigh, and tied her neat hair into a messy bun as she reverted to her husbandless housewife mode. Suji, meanwhile, decided to take a quick cat nap. The fatigue from staying up the entire day had been creeping up to him, and nearly losing himself back at Azazel's hideout had worsened his migraine. Haru was in a better shape since she had no trouble sleeping anywhere at any time. Sighing, he pulled both his legs to lay on the couch, and with the image of his brother who he only got to see twice a year in his mind, slowly drifted to sleep, only to wake due to the sound and the aroma coming from the kitchen, and decided that his sleep could wait. He couldn't pass up the chance to pester his twin sister. "How was your night, Goldie?" And the crows? Were there any? There were. Where are they now? Dia. Well, he didn't need to ask. Haru's immaculate state and satisfied smug smile streaking her face was a stark contrast to the devastation behind her. The abandoned church that had been empty and unmoved ever since they were kids had been reduced to a pile of rubbles. As Haru climbed onto his bike, Suji idly wondered how the news would cover this development tomorrow. There were a lot of them. There was this huge underground room, a huge stair leading up to some weird cross. It's like they were trying to reenact the crucifixion down there, except there was no Christ and way too many robed guys. I swear I just went to a cultist's den. That's so? Suji quirked one of his thick brows. Something of his that Haru couldn't imitate. Got anything useful? Well, after some persuasion, they told me they were planning to use the place to perform some ritual. Apparently there are other ways to nab sacred gears. Now that caught his interest. Do tell. It's just inefficient. Need a bucket of sinful innocent blood, a bunch of widows in robes, and some stranger chance. Ironic that they had to make a pact with a demon to steal God's gift. Fancy, Suji muttered. Their leader must have read one of Zazel's notes. Funny thing is, Haru continued, she did. Oh. You met her? No, she frowned. She wasn't around. It's Rainier, Zazel's bootlicker? He raised a single eyebrow again, surprised but not shocked. Whose gears was she planning to steal? Haru shrugged. Dunno. Don't care. But if it's Issei, then I'll pluck her feathers one by one. Suji knew better than to laugh at Haru's threats. As outlandish or joking as they might sound, she'd do it. There were exorcists too. Rogue ones? They're all dead anyway, so who cares other than their mother? Now let's go. She suddenly nagged, swatting the sleeves of her sweater across his face, flinching him. It's cold out. The things that came out from her mouth, some of them could be so blunt and scathing that it wouldn't be a mistake to dub her a villainess. Yet no one would even think a girl in her beige sweater and baggy pajamas was the culprit of this flattening of a once place of worship. Speaking of flat, you know, I still don't get how flat you are, he blandly said as he handed over an open-face helmet. White in color. I mean, I can only feel your ribs poking. There's really no meat over there. What? The hell? That immediately soured her uplifted mood. It basically crash-landed to rock bottom and popped a vein. Sorry. You flattened the place and you're just really flat. She slapped the back of his gunmetal gray helmet as she begrudgingly wore hers. Shut up and drive, you moron. That's sexual harassment. No, it isn't. You're my sister. That classifies it as bullying. He revved his bike as it hummed a growl in response, and drove through the dirt path, knowing full well he'd have to wash this brand new bike tomorrow morning because someone was so whiny about walking back home. Haru kept her mouth shut because she didn't want to risk getting stranded by this jackass of a brother. She knew he'd do it. He's the type to do it. She'd be surprised if she didn't. She could get back at him at home anyway, she just needed to be patient. So she wisely suppressed her anger, resisting the urge to pinch his sides. No fooling around on his bike. That was his only rule, and one she was obliged to obey because, well, he'd really leave her stranded. They arrived at their stop shortly after. A 10-minute ride at most that she mostly spent closing her eyes. He rode like a demon, and no matter how empty the road was and how quick his reflexes are, and no matter how many times she tagged along with him, it was still scary. She could handle thrill rides, but this was something else. And this all started because their dad watched Ghost Rider with him. Stupid boys. She grumpily jumped off the demon's steed and grumbled some more, taking off her helmet, fixing her hair, and then grumbled some more because she was not in a place she expected them to be stopping. This isn't our house. No. It's the town's park. Which isn't our house. She glared at him skeptically. Are bikes even allowed here? Sure it does. There's a sign over there. Haru followed his finger, and grimaced. Your bike isn't a bicycle, stupid. What if the patrols come around? We can't get arrested on our first day here, that's stupid. I'm not stupid, you are. Don't drag me with you if you want to spend the night in jail. Hey, chill. You can do magic. Just hypnotize them if there's even any, he told her dismissively, taking off his helmet, and taking a seat at the green park bench. He inhaled the air deeply, filling his lungs with the night's cold breeze, and hacked a cough afterwards. Are you stupid? Haru sighed, hanging her helmet at the rearview mirror, then proceeding to stand before him like she was about to yell at him for lounging around. All right, I'll bite. Why did you take me here? Reliving childhood memories, Suji blithely lied, scratching his jawline. What? Don't you want to know what I talked about with our little bro that isn't so little anymore? That didn't manage to wipe the scowl off her face. We can do that at home. Let's go home. She kicked his boot. I don't like it here. It's spooky and scary. She kicked his boot again. You're the scariest thing here. Who are you calling a thing? She kicked his leg. Directed at his shinbone. Hard. It would have hurt if he didn't lift his leg, resulting in her just kicking the thick rubber sole of his boots. Your partiality towards violence proves my point. Haru grumpily and huffingly sat down next to him, debating if she should go to the nearest police station and ask for a ride home, or paint his brother as a wannabe kidnapper. She sighed. She didn't have it in her to walk alone in this place where the only thing preventing this area from becoming pitch black were the pale light of the moon and the dim, and several flickering park lamps scattered around. Yes, she could conjure illumination or summon a bunch of light elementals, but that wouldn't change the fact that she'd have to walk alone through the dark. No, this was not because of that horror movie he forced her to watch because of a lost bet. Haru scooted towards him, their knees touching once. If monsters came out from the darkness, she'd throw him in exchange for her life in a heartbeat. Well, what did you talk about then? You didn't mention anything about me, did you? Nah. It'll be funnier seeing his reaction if I keep you a secret. That idea did amuse her quite a bit. Okay. What did you talk about? She asked again, curious now. Well, see, we had an in-depth talk about the marvels of a female body. I think I managed to show him an entirely new path. I'm proud of it. Haru regretted even asking. Are all boys just dumb perverts, or is it just our family? He humphed. All boys are. Those that say they aren't are liars. Haru chose not to believe him. We also chatted while I lectured him about being more careful with who he trusts. As his expression shifted, his brown brows furrowing, his hawk-like eyes gazing into nothing in particular, his smug smile replaced by a flat line, Haru stopped whatever she was thinking and paid more attention to him. The devil, she muttered. Can they be trusted? Sojiro released a sigh as he rested his eyes. She's a Gremory. Luckily. Could be much worse, but I don't know. Some apples roll far away from the tree, us being the primary evidence. I need to see her first. Tomorrow? This noon, he corrected, clearing his throat. It didn't help smoothing out his naturally gruff voice, evidence of his bad habits. I asked Issei so he could arrange a meeting with his new boss. Next week because I'm fucking spent. Haru made a face of disapproval. Next week? What happened to tomorrow? I'm going to see him again, duh. Dude wants to be stronger. She didn't like the sound of that. It implied Issei was willing to commit himself. He'd only taken a single step into this sea of mess. Backing out was still possible for him. Stronger? What for? Apparently to build himself the greatest harem the world has ever seen. What? I told him good luck because King Solomon had 1,000 bitches, and still wanted to cuck his own soldier. Language, idiot. My bad. Consorts. Haru huffed dismissively. Just another case of Suji being Suji. That said, but harem? Why a harem? I don't get it. What? You don't want to surround yourself with hot men? EW. No. What about rich men? I'll consider it. Well, so does he, and he wants sex, Suji said just as dismissively, earning himself a crude stare from this little sister of his that was only born minutes later. What? It's true. That's what he wants among other things. Other things like what? Big-tit girls. He was very specific about it. Haru palmed her face. I know he's special, but I didn't expect him to be this unique. Even worse, you won't even reprimand him. I'm a supportive brother, Suji said with a cheeky grin. And if he could do it, and take care of that many women, then why not go for it? Reprimanding him is your job. Oh, great. Not only she'd have to babysit this hound of a man, she'd have to make sure her little brother didn't end up like this fool next to her. You should come, he then continued. I'm going to need your help anyway. I can't properly train him in the open. Haru paused, thinking and mulling for a moment. Fine, but it'll be fine, he assured her. I think he'll be ecstatic to see he's got himself a cool big sis. No, it's not that I don't think I'm ready yet, she admitted, sulking and pouting a little. I'll help, but I don't want to be around. Just say that you're the one doing it. I already told him I had no magic. She threw her hands. Make something up like you always do. Fine, I'll think of something, Suji said, not wanting to get into an argument over small matters. In truth, he was keeping something from her. To have a harem was not the only reason Issei wanted training, but to prove himself that he could stand among the devils. Haru would freak out once she learned this dude wanted to stay with them. As if on cue, Haru sniffed and scratched her nose as she said, What about the devils? The Gremory, right? If her brother's any hint, then I'm not trusting her. Surzex was of a different breed. He might be a Gremory, but he's a Lucifer in the head. Anyway, she sounded alright from what he's told me, but I don't know. My gut is telling me she's only after him for his gear. Haru grunted gruffly as she folded her hands. Of course she would. He was a nobody. Why else? Pampered little shit, that's who she is. He did say she mentioned saving him was a gamble because she had to spend 8 pawn pieces to revive him. And told him it was worth the gamble once she knew about his gear. Suji could swear he heard the metal creaking a little. Come morning, people would come to wonder why a portion of this particular park bench was contorted, as if it had been wrung by a hand. Gambleworth. If you're trying to make me want to squeeze her pretty little neck, then you're succeeding at it, Suji. He raised both his hands in an attempt to calm her down. Now I get why you're mad, I'm mad too. Furious, even. But you have to see things from her perspective. He was a nobody, like you said, and he never showed any hints that he knew anything about the supernatural end of the world. Gremory or not, she's still a devil, and our boy is still just a no-name human. And he is still alive because of her, aight? Haru eased her grip and ungritted her teeth, relaxing herself though not completely. Like some anger was still left in here, now mingling with the old grudges she possessed. I hate this, she muttered. This sucks. He's not some commodity to be passed around. Yeah, well, I don't like it either, but it is how it is. That's what we used to be and how we treated certain people anyway. What comes around goes around, I guess. We don't do that anymore, Haru deflected. Let's spirit him away. I can do it. Suji gave her a disapproving look. And have him branded astray by the devils? Not if they thought he was kidnapped. Oh great, let's brand him astray, why don't we? He's been a devil for what? A week? The connection is still weak. I can sever it. Except he died, and the one allowing him to still breathe is the evil pieces inside of him. Take those away, and what do you think will happen? Haru gripped the sleeves of her sweater in frustration. Then we'll just take him with us. You think he'd want that? He added, still having the same what the fuck look on his rugged features. He's a guy, Haru. And he's a Haidu. We do that, and at best he'll feel patronized. At worst he'll surrender himself, when we ain't looking. TSK. I hate your logic. It levels out your crazy ideas. From the start, Haru had been the most vocal about her distaste of the devils and their elitism, thinking they were special because they could bring back the dead. Sure, it was great, and all. A miracle, even. A big fuck you to the Abrahamic God. She had seen the worst of them. It'd take a lot more than a single Gremory to make her change her opinion. He's no one's slave. He isn't. He's a servant. Same. Damn thing, she hissed, glaring at him now. Just because those Gremorys treat their slaves better than most, it doesn't change they have no problem continuing that tradition. Only the label's different. Sure, they follow a master, but their station is not fixed in stone. There's mid-class, then high, and then so on, and on. They're also paid a whole lot. Our baby bro's current salary already matched ours when we've worked a year for that geezer. Fake honorary titles so they won't rebel against their master. So they feel indebted. And money? Money loses its value once you get too much. Haru countered. They're servants. For the most part, they're treated as close personal subordinates. Like a nanny, actually. A butler would have made more sense, but you get the idea. That wasn't the case with... Who's that guy? Dora something. Rat bastard that raped the nuns, she seethed, the worry thick in her throat. You saw what he did to those women, and he's not the only one. He's just the only one that's been caught. Obviously there will be asshole devils who treat them like slaves, and if they refuse their master's order, they'll be branded astray. Like you just said? It's what happened to Kuroka, so don't even try to defend this, she glared at him. Sugarcoat it all you want, but currently, our little brother is someone else's property, Suji, and not even you can tell me otherwise. Why are you defending them? I'm not. I'm being objective since you're using feelings as reason. Gah, here we go again. It's true though, Suji said calmly, this time bringing back his small smile. Which one of us is more prone to lose their heads, HM? You jump into conclusions from time to time. It's a miracle you're not concussed. Yeah. That's right. You woman, he cackled, and laughed as Haru tried to smack his chest repeatedly, failing because not only was he bigger than her, he was physically stronger. She'd seen him wrestle a grizzly for sport. To him, she was like a cocker spaniel being a bit rowdy. It took a while, but she stopped bothering as she settled down, frowning as she stared at the bricked path before them, feeling the stillness of the silence around. Why aren't you upset? Why aren't you as upset as me? She began, choking a little as she was holding back her tears of frustration. He's our baby brother we've tried so hard to protect for years. Azazel blinked once, and now look at what happened to him. He's someone else's service boy, Suji. I didn't spend all those years for this. Of course I am. I'm hurting too, you know. Suji sighed as he planted his palm above Haru's head and her immaculately soft hair, stroking her back and forth as he spoke. But there's no use whinging on stuff that has happened. We can see him sooner than we planned. Haru shot a glare at him, her teary eyes becoming redder by the second, though she didn't complain about all the padding. We've been so careful, I mean we worked hard enough? We took lives for him. Lives, Suji. We've orphaned children, made parents weep for their dead kids until we felt nothing. She squeezed her hands tight. She'd crush Azazel's face if he was here, shaped us into monsters for nothing. That asshole turned us into remorseless assholes and he couldn't even keep his word? Well, no matter how we plan for the future, it's never certain, he sighed. He knew he'd have an easier time accepting things as compared to her. Issei seemed to have shared a similar trait as well, luckily for him. We know damn well our parents raised us well, to be good people. And they're good parents, they're good people. They made us like kings and queens despite their circumstances. But look at where we ended up, huh? Psycho twins that nabs people's gifts because we want to screw the good Lord over as a side job? An ironic laughter made Haru able to stifle her cry. She gazed upon the starless skies and wiped her eyes, seeing how ridiculous their travels had been, and how off-road they had gone from their initial goals. She still retained her pout but was able to accept some of the harsh realities she'd been forced to face. Being prepared is one thing, but there's no way to control everything. Try to do that, and you'll just explode out of frustration. Haru nodded. Dourly. Accepting the unchangeable, and steeled her resolve. We can't let him end up like us. That's a given, Suji smiled, patting her a few times like he would to a spaniel, in which she finally responded by pushing his hand in protest so he'd stop treating her like she was a sulking kid. She hopped off the chair with a renewed gait. Let's go home already. She whined, I need to prepare myself for tomorrow. Should we bring gifts? A cake? A cake is a normal thing, right? We're not trying to betroth him, dingus. We're not expected to bring anything. I know that, Haru complained. The cake's for me, idiot. Oh, break. Issei didn't sleep well last night. He couldn't. The possibility of him actually having an older brother, who, not only was pretty cool, got a dope bike, looking like he could beat up his bullies should they ever come to existence, had hyped him too much. Sojiro was everything he wanted to be in the future. Tall, good-looking but not handsome, unlike that prick of Ko, who isn't really a prick, just disgustingly perfect, and had that mysterious, sort of unapproachable air around him, like he was hiding something from him, but at the same time, turned out to be easygoing and wise and most importantly, had shown him a path he never knew existed. But that wasn't the idea that kept him awake. No, it was what the guy said about Rias. Thinking about it over, it made so much sense that Issei knew he could never find another reason as to why Rias would keep someone like him around other than the thing in his hand. He was weak. He didn't know how to fight. He didn't have an ounce of mana to even activate the teleportation circle. He was a hopeless pervert that prayed to the god of the wind to blow a breeze to lift the skirts of the female students and the hot teachers. He was blacklisted by every club in his high school because he hung out with the MM. He was a loser through and through, and he wasn't going to delude himself into thinking that he'd automatically get to hog all the hot girls of the world by just being strong. What if Rias was just tolerating him? What if the things she said were just lies so he wanted to be stronger for her benefits? What would he gain from being stronger other than being able to defend himself better? Girls? A harem that only liked him because he was strong? Just like he only liked girls if they were hot? No, that wasn't it. That sounded desperate. Not his style. Issei went to school with the foulest of moods, and that mood didn't change. He managed to play it off, and managed to get a day off by using rain air as a reason. Rias wanted someone to escort him, but he declined, stating he wanted to be alone and think about stuff. He was never a great liar, and lying to her, despite the circumstances, still made him feel awful for it. But that sapping guilt faded away the moment Issei met him again, and was reminded of his last night's determination to be stronger, to be somebody. Sojiro-san! Issei yelled as he jogged up to him. As promised, they met up at the town's park, at a place near the fountain where he got gutted. Sojiro had a loose workout shirt on, and as he got up closer, Issei finally noticed the well-defined muscles and the thick neck this man had, and the scar on his lips. That scar moved as Suji threw a pleased smirk, as he raised his fist for a quick fist bump, which Issei happily obliged. Holy crap, you're jacked, Issei blabbered in awe as he consciously glanced at his own muscles. His non-existent muscles. My arms look like spaghetti. We all start from spaghetti arms, bud, Suji assured him. All you have to do is be consistent. Stick to a routine for a week and you'll see improvements. Starting out is the hardest part, and once you get through that part, it'll be smooth sailing from then on. Issei nodded, energized, punting away his doubts, finding himself more motivated than usual. Maybe because there was someone else that wanted to see him succeed? It certainly felt like that. He looked around, saw the other visitors, kids and their mothers, and had to ask, "What do I do now? Are you going to work out in that uniform?" "No. I have my clothes here." Issei slapped his backpack. "I'll go get changed." "Well then get on it. Then we'll go for a light jog to stretch." "Huh? Just a jog?" Issei felt like fainting. Sojiro never specified his definition of a light jog, and Issei felt particularly lied upon. As he lay flat on the stone pavement, ridden with sweat and breathing as though he had sprinted an entire marathon. Because that really was what they just did. Issei coughed his complaint. "You said we're gonna go for a jog." He wheezed out. We ran through the park 4 times. Should have been 10. Meanwhile, Sojiro barely broke a sweat. He stood by his collapsed brother, his body blocking out the setting sun and casting a shadow over half of Issei's figure. 10? Fucking hell, my legs feel like jelly. Now you have spaghetti for arms and jelly for legs. As long as you don't have a rock for head, then you'll be fine. You didn't even look tired, and I'm the devil. Are you a devil? Nah, I'm an authentic human, Suji said, sitting down at the nearby bench, letting his silly little brother be one with the ground. Let's call it a day. Issei miraculously found the strength to sit up straight. We're done with just running? Is running gonna make me stronger? Having good cardio will help you once we get to the intense portion. Sides, I only wanted to test your stamina, and you did pretty well, all things considered. Suji grimaced approvingly. Not bad. Not bad at all. Well, that's mostly because I'm a devil. That helps, but the will to do it comes from your human side of things. Credit where credit's due, bud. Issei couldn't reply to that. Being so used to being belittled or questioned at every single little thing he tried to do, this kind of supportive encouragement was foreign to him. Do you think I can do it? He gingerly asked, his left hand reaching out the orange skies. Even without this thing in my hand, can I know somebody? Issei went quiet, waiting for a response, unaware of his surroundings until Suji grabbed his hand in a bro shake and tugged him back up. You can't be somebody else. Just a better you, Sojiro then said with a confident grin, and Issei already felt the passive boost of confidence infecting him from within. You reap what you wrought. You feel me? Break. The week was almost over, and during this week, Issei had never failed showing up, each day looking more determined than yesterday. Throughout all those hours, Haru had kept watch from afar, at one of the benches, sometimes near the fountain, occasionally further away, pretending like she was just a passerby as the two jogged past her. Her twin never forgot to make a stupid face whenever they did, making fun of her decision to sit at the sidelines, trying to rile her due to her stupid anxiety being an impertinent blockade to her reunion. It wasn't as though she wasn't looking forward to it. She wanted to laugh along with them just as much. But unlike her brother, she was scared. Scared of being blamed for the past. For abandoning her own family like that. But watching the little brother she so dearly loved finally doing stupid stuff with her idiot twin, laughing and fooling around like they owned the park, were enough for her. The joy on their faces was irreplaceable, and Haru felt her heart aching from the desire of wanting to join their fun. Just like the old days, Issei and Suji, those two idiots, were inseparable. Everything Suji did, Issei would try to copy it in a heartbeat, even if she told them how dangerous and stupid it was to jump off a swing. They never listened even after they hit their head and got scolded by Mom. Boys, oh, now they were laughing again. Curious, Haru decided to enchant her hearing with a little bit of magic and eavesdropped. If I run fast enough, will the wind caused by my sprint be able to lift skirts? And immediately regretted her decision. She didn't need her ears to tell Suji was getting a kick out of it. His bahaha laughter could be heard all the way from here. Great. That completely blew her mood into smithereens. Give me back my pensive frame of mind, goddammit. As she was cursing inwardly, questioning if her twin would be a good influence or bad for their little brother, a feminine voice belonging to an adult woman ruined her grumbling session. Hoa, it's getting hotter and hotter by the day, isn't it? She looked to her left, watched as a woman in a red shirt and beige long skirt who was unmistakably a housewife returning from her shopping trips sat down next to her. Haru nearly shrieked because that woman was her mother. Good afternoon, Hayato Miki greeted her with a friendly smile, setting down her grocery bags between them. Gee, good afternoon, Haru responded, her voice shaky. She had no troubles concealing her true emotions, but she never had to do that in front of her own mother. To describe her as nervous was an understatement. It's rare to see young girls in the park. Especially one as pretty as you, oh ho ho. Ah ha ha tea, thank you. Oh my, I'm sorry dear, I'm just kidding around. Must be awkward to be seen talking to such an old lady as I am. Mrs. Hyde giggled carefree, her expression nonetheless pleasant despite the awkwardness between them as she shoved out her smartphone. I'll keep this old mouth shut for now. And no. Haru squeaked. And no. It's fine. You're not bothering anyone, let's have a talk. I'm just surprised. Mrs. Hyde blinked, and put back her phone in her purse as the same simple smile returned to grace her face. Okay then. Let's talk. Another giggle. What's a young girl like you doing all alone in the park, if you don't mind me bugging you? Well, I was, what should she say? That she had been watching her son train? Are you waiting for someone? Sort of, Haru muttered. Oh, a boyfriend? Haru immediately made a face of disgust. God no. Era? I thought for sure that man over there was your boyfriend since you've been staring at him for some time. Wait, perhaps he dumped you. Why, young men these days have no tact. And no. Haru blubbered, panicking by the moment. He's my brother. Brother? Mrs. Hyde blinked, and covered her mouth as she laughed. Oh, I'm sorry. I just assumed other than your hair color, you don't have much similarity with each other. Yes, she heard that often. We're twins, believe it or not. Twins? Mrs. Hyde nearly jumped out of her seat. Twins? What? How? He's huge. Haha, he eats a lot. Works out a lot as well, I can see. I never thought I'd ever see my lanky son hanging out with a gym shark, you see. Most of his friends are all lanky like him. I worry about what they eat sometimes. Haru stole a glance just at the right moment to see the look in her mother's face. She was watching her son, both her sons. There was a smile on her face. Relief, gladness, and happiness all contained in that one smile. Mrs. Hyde sighed dreamily. Ah, that boy over there is my son, see? The one that looks like a stick compared to your brother? Yeah. Haru found herself smiling as well. He seems nice. He's also a massive pervert, so I can't recommend you going anywhere near him. Haru would have spat whatever she was drinking if she was drinking. That was harsh, but nonetheless the truth. Mickey Hyde grumbled as she crossed her hands. Now he doesn't even bother to hide his stash properly. It's like he's lost all sense of shame or something. Like, goodness me, I can't even find the words to describe how badly he's fallen in that hobby of his. And get this, despite all that, he still doesn't have a girlfriend. And furthermore, and thus that was how Haru spent 10 minutes of her day, just listening to her own mother prattling about her unruly son. But despite all the complaints she spewed, despite the embarrassing things regarding Issei that she unknowingly spouted, Haru felt the love in them. She wondered if she felt the same way about her if she knew she was rambling on to her unrulier daughter. But thank goodness he's a good kid by heart, Mickey suddenly said, her expression softening. It's a shame most people can't seem to see that. She then giggled. But they can't really be blamed either. He doesn't give out the best first impressions. It'd be nice if more people see him for who he truly is, however sorry, I tend to ramble once given the chance. It's okay, Haru assured. I'm sure your son will meet those people sooner than later. I'm sure of it. Mickey blinked a few more times, wondering why a stranger would say that with that kind of sincerity on their face. Why thank you, she decided to think nothing of it any deeper. My, you're not only pretty but kind as well. I don't doubt your twin isn't all that different. As Haru stared at her again, it was then that she realized her mother wasn't just making pointless idle talk, but to ensure her son wasn't hanging out with the wrong people. He doesn't have that many friends, but he's a good boy, and that's what worries me the most. If he hung out with the wrong crowd, then I'd after a few while. Mickey decided not to complete that sentence. Oh dear, I apologize for having assumptions about your brother because of how he looks. Haru desperately wanted to laugh. That's all right. I'd get worried too if I didn't know him. We'll keep this our little secret, shall we? Mickey tittered, looking years younger as she got up and grabbed her plastic bags. It was nice chatting with you, young miss. Haru, she said, and felt the sting in having to introduce yourself to your own mother. I'm Haru. Nice to meet you. And I'm Auntie Mickey. Mickey smiled. Kindly tell your brother to treat my kid well, would you? Of course, Haru replied. I will. Do you need help with those? I can call my brother. Oh no. No need. I'd hate to ruin the boy's fun. Usually after school he'd always come home, eat and sleep until it's dinner. But the last few days he always came home late, so this is what he's been doing, working out. Ah, I'm so glad. Haru smiled, but couldn't help but wonder if she'd have the same reaction once she learned the reason behind his daily exercise. Well then, see you whenever. Haru-san. Thank you for humoring this old lady. Miki Hayato went home being pleased with herself, proud to have made herself an acquaintance who was not only young and of a new generation, but beautiful. She was planning to brag about it to her fellow housewives tomorrow morning, and to brag that her son was finally working his ass off instead of going home and jerking it out. Once she had left, once Haru made sure she couldn't see her mother leaving the park, Haru broke down in tears, and of course Sojiro would notice it. The moment he saw Haru burying her face on her palms, he dropped everything he was doing and pace walked over to her, not realizing Issei had followed him out of habit, mistaking this as one of Suji's shock exercises. Not until Issei became aware of where they were heading, and who they were approaching did he finally ask if he should be tagging along. Is your girlfriend alright? He asked first to make an excuse. Suji made a face. No. She's my twin. Oh, your twin, huh? Issei nodded sympathetically. I should. Maybe she was upset because her twin who was her boyfriend wasn't spending as much time as he did, but then it clicked, for Issei. Wait, twin? Doesn't that mean, yeah. That's your sister, eh? What? Wait, hold up, I have a sister too? She's my twin, so yes, that makes her your sister, Suji said. I'm the eldest, by the way. Don't believe her if she says otherwise. Holy crap, Issei mumbled out, slowing down his steps. Not only did he have a sibling, he got two of them. All that time spent hoping for a sibling, all this time, he had two. Not important right now. Why is she crying? Likely because she had a talk with a mom she hasn't heard from for 10 years. Wait, my mom was here? Suji finally stopped his pace, and gave Issei a look. You know, once we have your foundation set up nice and proper, we're gonna have to work on your situational awareness. Suffice to say, being a sobbing wreck wasn't how she had pictured her reunion with her little brother. But Haru was already shaken by her previous talk with a mother that didn't even recognize her. She hadn't prepared herself mentally to reintroduce herself to Issei again, and now his stupid twin had to bring him along. This sudden development was a little bit more than a little bit too much for her poor sentimental heart to handle. Haru, I'm fine with you bawling your eyes, but people are gonna start thinking we're mudding you. And of course stupid Suji was of no help. Pouting, sniveling, managing to control her tears somewhat because she had to glare at him, even with her swollen and puffy eyes. Even with her cheeks flushed as was the tip of her nose, Haru must shoot a crude glare at her twin, and that she did. At least now she could distract herself from those melancholic feelings by converting her emotions to being mad at him. Stupid Suji. Sujidiot. Baka. Bakajiro. I literally haven't done a single thing, Suji responded, confused, but decided to move things along since it was just his twin being emotional. Well anyway. Issei Haru. Haru Issei. She's my twin and your older sister. Oh, Issei awkwardly said, not really sure what to do in this sort of situation. Whyo Issei hira hi ne-san? Haru's hazel eyes locked onto Issei's, and in that moment, everything else seemed to fade away. She broke, her laughter mingling with tears as her heart raced with the promise of a reunion long overdue. Ne-san. That broke Haru's dam. All the years spent away from her little brother came down crashing, and the waterworks was once again unleashed. This, of course, shocked Issei. I haven't heard it from you for so long. Oh boy, don't mind her, bud. She's always been the more emotional one. Suji stopped himself mid-sentence. Actually, Issei stopped his sentence, because Suji had a double take when he noticed the kid brother himself was getting misty-eyed. And Nizan, swept by the moment, and specifically because he was overjoyed to have such a beautiful sister that even cared so much about him. Issei couldn't help himself from getting emotional either. Ikken! Haru Nizan! Ikken! As the two hugged it out, embracing each other as long-lost siblings do. Suji felt a bit offended that Issei didn't have the same reaction when he revealed himself to be his brother, but he wasn't going to let it drag him down. Actually, he was starting to get uneasy, and he sensed the leering eyes of curious passers-by. Just a few feet away, Suji stood, a bemused smile playing on his lips. He watched his younger siblings with a mixture of fondness and slight embarrassment. Great, you both are definitely mother's kids. Hey, you too, Suji finally chimed in, his voice carrying a blend of amusement and mock irritation. I'm still here, you know. It's good that we're all together now, but maybe let's do this without turning the park into a public sob fest. Yes? People are staring. Break. The quaint cafe nestled at the corner of the bustling street offered a serene escape from the outside world. The Hayata siblings had settled into a cozy booth at the smoking area outside, the dusk casting a gentle glow over their faces. The cafe buzzed with the soft hum of conversation, and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee hung in the air. Issei shifted a bit in his seat, looking around with a mix of fascination and slight awkwardness. His older sister was sitting beside him, her eyes filled with affection as she observed his reactions. Across from them, Sojiro leaned back casually, smoke curling from the cigarette between his fingers, one leg resting above the other. Order whatever you like, Iken, she hummed. Sojiro will eat the leftovers. I am bothered by this dynamic already, Sojiro said, shrugging anyway. Just because she was being rude, she wasn't wrong, he'd eat them. But order whatever you want. It's our treat. I already did. My order hasn't even arrived yet, and you can ask more, Haru pointed out. No need to be shy. This won't be the first time either, I swear. It's fine, lil bro. We're loaded. Eh? Seriously? How loaded? Loaded, Sojiro grinned smugly, gray smoke seeping past his perfect row of teeth. So don't hold back. For real? If you say that, I really won't hold back on leeching off you guys, you know. Haha, do your worst, Haru giggled dreamily. Her brother wasn't known to hold anything back. Always honest, even if it cost him. Sojiro, on the other hand, he could deceive snakes. So what exactly do you guys do? Sojiro exchanged a knowing glance towards his twin, and with a nod, Haru formed a soundproofing barrier around them. Invisible to the naked eyes, and nearly untraceable. Maybe this is too soon, but we don't want to hide anything from you, Issei. And feel free to say anything, we're in her barrier. Whoa, you're a wizard? And a good one at that, Haru bragged, her nose growing. But we're getting sidetracked here, we're contractors. Sojiro started. Haru didn't miss a beat. They talked and agreed upon this before. And by that, he's not talking about someone that handles the construction work. We're what you might call contractors. I'm sure you've heard of the term before, but not under the same meaning. Issei furrowed his brows, his confusion evident. Contractors like you mean us devils? Taking contracts and such? Haru exchanged a quick glance with Sojiro before turning back to Issei, her expression a mixture of resignation and determination. Our contracts are well less whimsical and more violent. Issei's eyes widened, a mixture of disbelief and concern flooding his expression. You mean you're hitmen? For this side of the world? This and there, it makes no difference. Suji's lips curved into a wry smile. You could say that we're hitmen. Issei's mind raced, trying to reconcile the siblings he'd only discovered with the chilling revelation before him. But it made sense, of course. His siblings had been in this world much longer than him. Sojiro's muscles, Haru's control over magic. He was glad to know they were good people. But to learn they had killed before? Seeing her brother's expression worried Haru enough to voice her concern. I don't know if this is a good idea, Sojiro. It's fine. He can handle it. He deserves to know. No more hiding, right? But Haru pressed her lips. The possibility that her brother might come to hate her because of her past terrified her. She didn't want to lose him, or be forced to lose him. She didn't want to alter his memory again. The people you killed, were they bad people? Sojiro took a sip of his cigarette, and replied as smokes were coming out of his lips. Most of them, yes. Ah, and the rest? Unlucky, Haru added. Her gaze held a tinge of regret. It's a long story, Iken. We were promised you'd be safe. Suji's voice carried the weight of their history. Look, we were young, we were stupid, and most unfortunately, we had potential. We got involved with people who promised us safety in exchange for our services. Your safety specifically. Haru's eyes remained focused on Issei, her voice tinged with regret. But you died, didn't you? Yeah, Issei's tone held a mix of confusion and concern. A devil brought me back, but I guess you already know that. Haru nodded, her voice firm but heavy. I hope you don't feel patronized by this, but we're here to protect you ourselves. At least until you can master your sacred gear. There are many dangers in this side of the world, Iken, if you got hurt again. Sojiro leaned forward, his gesture enough to ease his twin's nerves. We won't let that happen. But you're free to do what you want, of course. Whatever you choose, we've got your back. Issei's heart clenched as he looked at his siblings, grappling with the gravity of their actions and the consequences that followed. I can't believe this, you guys, you did all of that for me? Haru's voice was heavy with regret. We did, Issei. But we never imagined it would lead to this. Issei's emotions were a whirlwind, his voice filled with a mixture of disbelief and sorrow. I can't even begin to think. Suji's gaze met Issei's, his voice sincere, calming. Reminiscent of their dad. We're not telling you this to justify what we've done. We want you to know the truth, why we're here after so long. I hope you can still accept us back as your family, Issei. We're here to protect you now, please don't push us away. Issei's eyes shifted between his siblings, his heart heavy with the realization of the sacrifices they had made. I never thought. Things we do for love, Soji's sigh and tone was earnest, his steely eyes unwavering. We know it's a bit much to take in, but we're here for you, no matter what. Issei's eyes shifted between his siblings, his understanding deepening. You did all of this for me, oh man, I'm getting teary again. I mean I'm so happy. You guys have no idea how happy I am right now. Alright, I get it. You did what you think you have to do, thank you guys so much. You made me feel like I'm worth something now. Issei, his tears were mirrored by Haru's own as she reached for a tissue, her emotions overflowing as she watched her younger brother process the truth of their past, and still welcomed her with open arms, and even going so far as finding joy. Soji leaned back, taking a drag from his cigarette, his expression a mix of amusement and understanding, letting his siblings have their moment. Again. Seemed like this might be a recurring theme. He better start pocketing handkerchiefs. Wiping away his tears, Issei nodded firmly, his heart swelling with a mixture of gratitude and determination, even with snot coming down his nose. I'll do my best to become stronger, to protect myself and those around me. I'll protect you guys even. I believe in you, Haru sniffled, grasping her little brother's hand. This time, we'll be with you all the way. You'll never walk alone in this, Issei. Yeah, thanks Nasan. As Issei's tears slowly subsided, a sense of unity and understanding settled over the cafe booth. The weight of their past had been revealed, but so had the depth of their love and their commitment to one another. Aniki as well. Hell yeah, brother. Soji felt that it was his cue to be the cool big bro, and thus he proceeded to do just so, fist bumping with the boy. With us around, you'll have nothing to fear. Hell, you'll be the one thing they'll learn to fear. Huh? What? You wanted to be stronger, right? Well, I'm here, and I'm pretty strong. I'll whip you up into shape in no time. Just because I'm your bro, doesn't mean I'll go easy on you. You're committed, right? We Hyodas ain't no cowards. Why yeah. What are you gonna do to me? Nothing that I won't do, Soji grinned lightly. But Issei didn't feel any better. He felt more unnerved rather, because he tried to think of what his old brother wouldn't do, and that scared him a little bit. For now though, we'll do what we've been doing, and oh joy, here comes our food. How can I relax after that? Oh, that looks good. Hey, hands off, that's mine. Don't be stingy, Soji. You can just order another one. And thus the Hyada trio ate, and joked to their heart's content, happy to be reunited, feeling that nothing this world could throw at them would make them budge. In fact, they'd force it to budge instead. It would have been closer to perfect, if not for the fact that Haru had sensed the presence of an inhuman being. Her sensor picked it up. Extremely attuned to an otherworldly frequency, Haru had become akin to a living radar, her senses stretching beyond the mundane to catch the subtle echoes of supernatural energy. Her magical web of perception had blanketed the area around her long since, and she'd felt this presence for quite some while. It was as if ripples of energy emanate from the wielder, reaching out to bounce back information from the very essence of their surroundings. Similar to how a sonar worked, but magical. Soji, blue car behind you. To your left. There's an odd presence. Whatever it is, they've been following us since we got out of the park, and they can't be Rias. Soji responded with a casual nod. He couldn't do telepathy like his twin. It was a one-way form of communication after all. Oh right, no one outside can hear us, right? Yeah, Haru hummed just as casually. He was calming her down by saying that aloud, and consequently impressed Issei, who wasn't able to use a shred of his demonic powers yet. That's sick. Can I learn how to do that? Well, while I can't refuse my cute little brother's request, can I ask why you would like to learn it specifically? Aren't you boys more interested in something like shooting fireballs or stone bullets out of your hands? Issei paused his burger eating. Wait, you can do those things too? Haru's flat chest swelled with pride. Of course. Who do you take me for? Huh? Why do I feel like hitting someone all of a sudden? Soji scooted back an inch. He wasn't going to let his early dinner be disturbed, either by the devil's little spy, or his own sister. By the by, shouldn't we pay your master a visit soon? Might as well officially introduce ourselves, eh? Oh. You're right, if you can come to my school after school, like maybe at 5, I'll take you guys to my clubroom, I guess? Peerage was the word he was looking for and had forgotten. Sure, Soji said, his tone even, his expression unreadable. That'd be swell. With that, Haru also reported her recent findings or lack thereof. It's gone odd, it's either a devil or a fallen angel. Closer to a yokai. Yokai, eh? Soji raised a single eyebrow at that. Ah. It's probably her. He made a mental note to tell his twin about it later on. Though, even if he ended up forgetting about it as he often did, his sister would remind him by nagging about it anyway. Break. Akino watched curiously as their new pawn stood awkwardly before their king's study desk, looking like he was about to formally reintroduce himself or ask for a favor. Yes, Hayadu? Rias began with a casual look, not noticing the anxiety of her particular pawn that had been chewing him up from the inside. Have you eaten lunch? Yuto and Kaneko are both in the cafeteria. You can text them if you want anything from the canteen. We don't have club activities until after school hours. Yeah, I know, it's just a no, he realized. He couldn't say it. Too afraid. He didn't want to be made fun of. Not by Rias. He wouldn't care if other people made light of him, but if it was her, it'd ruin him. Someone wanted to meet you, so he instead said, Actually I want to introduce someone to you guys. HM? Reading the hints that this might be a big deal for her adorable pawn, Rias placed down her pen and took off her fake glasses, folding it neatly and placing it next to her fountain pen. Someone? Who is it? Another girlfriend? And no. Also ouch, Akino-senpai, my heartbreak hasn't healed yet, you know. Oh no, how sad. Would you like me to mend it, Issei-kun? A massage might not be able to completely heal a broken heart, but it may help ease a wounded soul. Yes, please. Rias cleared her throat. Hayadu. That brought him to his senses. Alright. Well. It's the people, actually. They're my brother and sisters. That took Rias by surprise. Fixing her posture, Rias then clasped her hands as she leaned forward. Issei struggled to maintain his focus because her impressive, sizable chest was being pushed up by the table as she did, making them appear even bigger than they already were. Your brother? You have a brother? Yeah, believe me, I didn't even know until last week. Last week? Rias narrowed her eyes. This sounded suspicious already. We met when I was going home. I met my sister yesterday, in fact. They're twins. Issei rubbed his elbow, not getting why the hell was he being this nervous, like he was telling a lie when it was nothing but the truth. At least what he thought to be the truth. They told me he wanted to see you guys. To explain some stuff. Rias blinked, and passed a glance at her queen for her opinion, only receiving a light shake of her head in return, along with a non-committal shrug at the end before she went on to move next to her. Up to her, Akino was saying, Well, I don't mind. You don't sound so certain about him. Perhaps by meeting him we'll be able to help you determine if he's telling the truth. Yeah, that'd be cool. Issei nodded, actually getting excited as he thought about it. Thanks. But do you have any idea who they work for? Or if they belong in any organization? I'm assuming they knew about us already. They do, yeah. Issei scratched his mess of hair. Well, this is kinda awkward, but he used to work for a guy called Azazel? The mood shifted in a heartbeat. If there was a jazz record playing, Issei was sure it would have stopped and scratched at this moment. He saw the shock register on Ria's face before it shifted into caution. He was so preoccupied paying attention to Ria's expression that he failed to see the dark scowl on Akino's face the moment Azazel's name left his lips. She didn't let it last long, however, and had donned her mask as per usual. Wait, they used to work for the guy, Issei immediately clarified, fearing she was going to label his potential brother as a potential hostile instead. They quitted because I was murdered by one of them. Rias hummed, keeping her professional look as she thought of ways to gain information regarding the Gregory and their governor. If they were indeed Hayadu's brother, then they would make valuable allies. She'd read some of Issei's files. His dossier. The fact that his parents had 2 failed childbirths struck her mind immediately when Issei said his twins wanted to come see her. But to test if they were truly his siblings and not some shams proclaiming they were one was yet to be seen. Should they appear to be fake, then they should be eliminated. That's a relief, Rias calmly said instead. When are they coming here? Today, Issei said. At 5. I told them if that's cool with you. Oh. That urgent? It's alright, I'm not particularly busy today, but next time, do make an appointment with me first, Hayadu. You need to tell me things like this at least a day in advance. Why yes. My bad. He readily bowed formally. You're forgiven, Rias smiled gently, and Issei swooned right then and there. Me and Kaneko-chan can't be present, however. Will that be alright, Bucho? Your contracts, no? It's fine. I have a feeling this won't be their only visit. Do be careful, however. I'll try to get mine done as soon as I can, especially since I'm curious to know. What are they like? Issei thought for a moment for a word, and the only word that blinked into existence in his brain on the spot was delinquent. He looks like a delinquent. My sister looks like a supermodel. Rias blinked, thought about it, and tried imagining an older Issei as she tilted her head. She was unaware that Akino was doing the exact same except with her index finger pressing the skin next to her lips. Both failed in doing so. Their cute, extremely perverted, yet nonetheless earnest pawn? A rebellious delinquent? And a supermodel? No way. Issei was physically average with an average looks. And while neither Rias nor Akino cared for physical appearances, they still couldn't picture a buff version of their pawn or a supermodel version of their pawn. By Lilith did they fit the bill. Rias was doing her hardest not to show much of her surprise when Kiba brought in a man who towered his height, but also appearing like he'd wrestle a bear for morning exercise. He was taller and much more sturdy looking compared to Riser, and perhaps a mite smaller if compared to her cousin, Sarorg. Slightly leaner, as the Bale had a bulky chest that was noticeably wider than his waist, whereas this person would look to be of average build if he was wearing thicker clothing. But nonetheless, Delinquent truly described his appearance to AT. Dark brown hair that reached the base of his nape, eyes that were constantly glaring at something even if they weren't, a seemingly permanent scowl, not to mention the pink welt near the corner of his lips. The way he dressed himself suggested that he was older but not much older. A simple black t-shirt that hinted at some of his well-defined build, a brown leather bomber jacket bundled in his arm, and topped with dark blue jeans and a pair of sneakers. And the strength in those muscles, heaven be damned. This man was built like a tiger. He could pop a person's head like a bear trap with an apple. But that wasn't all, because Kiba wasn't escorting just him, but also another person, a girl. A young girl that didn't look much older than her either. Much shorter than the guy, same chestnut brown hair except much lighter, several shades lighter than her pawns. She was pretty, knew how to dress to accentuate her natural beauty whilst keeping it light yet stylish. Black sunglasses hooked onto the collar of her cream-colored blouse. A beige sweater was tied around her slender waist, worn like a belt over her pair of shorts. Rias noted that her eyes were much gentler, but those hazel browns retained a certain tinge of sharpness to it, as if she could detect a lie in a glimpse. It might just be her overthinking things, however. She also kept it to herself for now, but she would have mistaken the two as a model and her bodyguard if not for Issei's earlier information. But most importantly, she couldn't detect a shred of magic from the bodyguard. Yet the traces of magic around the model had jittered erratically and floated towards her whenever she moved, coagulating, forming a sphere, only to bounce and break away when they were about to make contact with him. As if they were magnets with polar opposites, one attracts, the other resists. "Hello," she began, still stumped at the disparity of the two in more ways than one. "Good afternoon." "Yes, it is." The bodyguard, Sojiro, she recalled, nodded. Sojiro Hayate. He certainly had a unique reply to a greeting. She didn't miss the cheeky grin he gave along with heads-up nod towards her pawn, who responded just as much, likely thinking they were being cool men. How adorable they could be. But first things first, I'm Rias Gremory. Please just call me Rias. Right, will do. A pleasure to meet you. Hayate here hasn't stopped talking about you. He seems eager to introduce the both of you to me, or perhaps the other way around. She slipped in a giggle. Nevertheless, please do take a seat. His guests are my guests as well. Suji led his way as the model followed next him, seemingly intent to look as unapproachable as she could. Rias could practically taste the distaste in her eyes when their eyes met. But that distrust was gone in a flash when her eyes fell upon Hayate Issei. Gone was the coldness, and what replaced it was a certain kind of warmth, as she stared longingly at her pawn, only for her to look down to her hands, and pressed her lips together. Sojiro took special note of Rias' observation, easily masking his discovery by looking around the room, and checking out the luxury of being the daughter of the owner of their school. Fancy place, he said. It's like a hotel here. Well, minus that occult-looking pentagram over there that isn't some sacrificial altar or anything of the like, is it? Rias chuckled gently. We are the Occult Research Club, though it's nothing like that grim. It's just a teleportation circle. The Gremory proceeded as normally as she normally would, getting on with the pleasantries first and ushering Akino to make some of her iced tea before going for the meatiest part. How on earth did they manage to stay under the radar for this long? My servant told me he had a brother, she began, clasping her hands, keeping her eyes trained on theirs to see how they'd react. She intended to use that particular word in a demeaning connotation. The man didn't look disturbed in the slightest, only nodding along, affirming her statement. Attempting to convince her, perhaps, but the girl, however, Sarah Fall Leviathan, being the Satan that handled foreign affairs, which meant having to have a good understanding regarding how to read people, had taught her and Sona how to do just so. But Rias didn't need any of that training because the woman before her looked like she was ready to cut her tongue with her glare. Well, now I know she cares about him to this extent, Rias supposed. She didn't enjoy being rude on purpose, but she wouldn't have done it if it wasn't to ensure her pawn was not being tricked. It might be confusing if I call both of you as hiatus as we have three. Now I hope you don't mind if I call you with your name. Sojiro, correct? She immediately proceeded, smiling professionally this time. You can just call me Suji. And this here is, planning to tear your pretty head off, Haruyuki, Haru said curtly, her glare ever present, intensified now. If you cannot use that word when referring to my brother, that'd be great. My apology. It's simply a term the devils have long since established, though I assure you, I consider my servants as my own family. Yes, we know about you Gremories and your attachments, but if you ever planning to use him in any way, Suji interrupted her words by nudging her sides. Hey, remind me again, did we come here to pick fights? Ugh. I hate royals. Always think they're better than us. All this bullshit formalities make me want to vomit. She's upset, you see. Suji nevertheless went on, disregarding his sister's opinion. We've had experiences with devils, none of which have been pleasant. Well, hopefully our meeting will break that streak, Rias offered her smile. She could feel her pawns worry at his older sister's behavior, but Rias would tolerate it. After all, her intention was not to make enemies. Especially not those who could be directly related to her adorable pawn. I'm guessing you're referring to the time when you were under the Gregory? Directly under Azazel, even. That's what we meant, yes, Suji replied. Despite his intimidating stature, Rias supposed he was the more approachable twin. It's a rather touchy subject though, so, I understand. Rias duly nodded. Well then, with introductions out of the way, may I ask the purpose of your visit here? If it's to ensure Hayate Issei's well-being, then I assure you, as his master and leader of my peerage in which he is a part of, Rias corrected. That woman could death stare someone to death. I'll do everything in my power to ensure his safety. He's made a choice to be part of this world. Did he now? It was Suji this time as his eyes fell over to Issei's. Well, bud? Issei nodded, nervously at first, but firmed it eventually. Yes. I want to stay a devil so one day I'll have my own peerage and harem. Alright, you can stop there, Suji said. Rias studied the twins' reactions. So far, the brother seemed supportive, and he might have asked Issei to shove reality to his twin's face. After all, Haruyuki Hayate looked devastated by Issei's words. See? Haru? He's got his own ambition. His own reasons. He's a big boy that knows what he wants and how to get it. Let him work hard for it. Yeah. I get it already. Suji nodded once, twice, thrice. Though Haru was sulking, this should at least keep her quiet for a bit. So, as you can see, we're here to give you our blessings. That only stays as long as you treat him well, though. No need to dote on him. As long as you don't see him as a tool, we're peachy. Understood. Thank you? Not like Rias required their agreement in this, since Hayate Issei was and would be her servant regardless. But the gesture was appreciated. And just so we're clear, we're aware that he's in your peerage and that he's your responsibility and all that jazz. But that doesn't mean we'll stop looking after him either. You're so cool, Aniki. Suji ran his hair back. Course I am. Who do you take me for? Rias giggled at their antics. She was starting to see their resemblance now. Boys at heart indeed. Understandable. You're his family. Even if I have the right to intrude, I can't see myself wanting to separate those that meant well for him, or any of my servant helpers. It's fine. Just call him your servant. It's what he is. She'll learn to get used to it. Haru shot him an icy stare. Suji, Haru. Grumpily, Haru elbowed his muscular side. It wasn't very effective. Well, at least she got the approval of one of them. Rias was prepared to debate her right to have Issei as her servant, but it seemed she wouldn't have to go to that length. Forgive me, where are my manners? Normally I have my queen and assistant here to serve you beverages, but she happens to be away at the moment. Would you like some? Iced tea, perhaps? Yudo, if you would. Right away, Prez, the blondie nodded, stepping away from his spot behind Ria's sofa. The twins even had forgotten he was there all along. I'll have an iced tea, thank you very much. And Haru? Suji offered, but Haru outright refused. Her loss, he shrugged. We won't bug you for long, though. Please make yourself comfortable, but if you are about to leave soon, Hayate, pardon me. I mean, Issei has shared with me the reasons why you disappeared from his life for a long time. May I pry a little about that certain period? Maybe another time, Rias, but just know that we did it to protect him. Suji gently rejected, but being an expert at this thing, he let her know that the door was not completely shut by saying, maybe once we're better acquainted, I'll tell you the full story. You'll get nothing but grunts from her. Zip it, dumbass. Rias resisted her urge to let out a chuckle. She waited for a moment as Kiba had returned from the tea brewing station, bringing the ordered beverages with him, a steaming cup of chamomile tea, and a glass of iced tea. "Pardon me," he politely said. "Thanks," Suji said, wasting no time to treat himself to the drink. Rias took a sip of her tea as well, before moving on. "Then in that case, I look forward to that day. I can understand your distrust towards me, specifically, but I swear on my name and honor as the heir of the Gremory house, there won't be a time where I see your little brother as a mere tool. He's my adorable helper. Heaven must fall before I throw him into danger, and if you're the one in a pinch, who's going to look out for you?" Haru immediately dared. "Him? Fortunately, I have been blessed with reliable allies. Sona Citri, if I'm not wrong." "Yes." Rias wasn't the least bit surprised that they knew of Sona's presence, and her true name. If they were directly under the governor, then their access to information might be way above her own, especially since they didn't appear to have an overprotective older sibling like she did. Two little sisters of the Satans, conveniently controlling one territory together. "Look, I'm not trying to make you worry or anything, but this has always been in my head. Doesn't that concern you?" "Shouldn't that concern them?" Rias sighed softly, but her shoulders tensed. "We try to balance our roles with our own safety. We're well aware of the risk that, as it may, we are heiresses of our respective house, and I am, as you can see, quite understaffed at the moment." "Why is that?" I suppose you can say that I'm waiting for the right person," Rias chuckled. "I tend to be frugal, when it comes to my evil pieces, saving up so you'll always have enough when someone powerful happens to be in need of your help, huh?" Rias knew she had to be patient, both for her pawn's sake and her own. She wanted to have the siblings' strength, but the girls started to push her over the edge. That said, she understood her. Completely, in fact. Rias had been the victim of her own older siblings' controlling behavior. Although she knew Sirzek's meant well, he could be quite restraining at times. It's her stuff. Her currency. It's up to her how she spends it, whether we like it or not. Once again, Suji came to her help. Once again proving he was more logically driven compared to his siblings. Even Rias knew Issei could be rather impulsive. Hopefully, his brother would be a role model for them. As far as things go, her pawn certainly had shown signs of his admiration towards the muscular Haidu. That said, Rias couldn't tell if this was a good cop, bad cop routine, but if it was, then it was working on her. And besides, he went on. "He told me you took a gamble on him. I guess you've no idea what he has up till now. Twice critical is what he possesses, although if that is what he has, then I'm not sure why it took 8 pawns to resurrect him. It's boosted gear, only dormant. It's as Azazel expected." Suji could only mentally nod at Haru's mind message. "Perhaps you know, Mr. Suji?" "No," he said, much to Rias and Issei's disappointment. "And you, just call me Suji." "I'm no mister." "Pardon me then," Rias giggled. "That as it may, I've no intention of casting him aside for whatever reason." Both Suji and Haru could tell Issei was overjoyed to hear that, much to Haru's resentment. Good to hear, Suji supposed. Neither he and definitely not Haru trusted Rias completely, but they'd agreed to see where her leadership could bring their little brother. And one more thing. By the by, Gremory, we happen to be 2 extremely talented individuals that are extremely out of work. We're unemployed, you see, and our past salaries have made us quite the greedy people. Rias blinked, but quickly registered his intention of bringing such matter to her. "Are you offering me your services?" "Yep. We've talked. We're pretty affordable for all the things we can do." It took everything in her to not shoot up from joy. "Why this is rather sudden. While I'm certain you've worked directly under Lord Governor Azazel himself, I do need proof to back it up. What about the leveled church a bit outside of town?" Suji pointed out. "That's been the Crow's hideout for a while. It's leveled flat now though, and if you're looking for the culprit, it's this girl here." "Excellent." If it was appropriate for her to grin, Rias would have grinned. But she maintained her cool. "Ah, I see. I can take over their formal hideout down the red light district if you'd like." All 3 of them. They're dangerous people with grey moralities, a thought immediately rang in her head. Precisely the people I desperately need at this very moment. "Ah, Hayate, you've been a godsend so far." "There's no need to go that far," Rias reassured. "Perhaps a trial task, if you're willing I'll pay you half up front, and the rest upon completion, not including the bonus. After that, we can discuss the terms of your contract." Suji found no reason to hide his grin. "And here's our bombshell of a gold mine. Nobles are great. She didn't even ask for our fare. Why look after him for free when you can get paid?" Haru, however, wasn't as ecstatic as her pragmatic twin. But if it meant she could be closer to Issei and observe his growth and make sure he wasn't tricked by this princess, then, she'd lost him once. She wasn't going to lose him ever again. What's on your mind? Suji continued, his grin starting to curve the pink scar on his lips. Tell me if you need anything further elaborated, Suji. Lately, we have been losing precious contractors left and right. We suspect it is the fallen angels' doing, and we have hard evidence backing it up, pointing towards the stray exorcists they definitely have hired and smuggled to this town. Me and Sona have requested the permit to take matters into our own hands and investigate it ourselves. But, as you may have known already, we're too doted upon. The devils will send their own investigation team, but the process will take time. And? What do you want us to do about it? Hunt down the killers? I want you to find whoever it is that did it, and make it clean. You can't be traced back to us. That's doable, but it'll cost you extra. Rias nodded agreeably. Quality comes at a price. Good. Suji clapped his big hands once. As for the payment, you'll have to talk to her. She's the account manager. There's one thing I'll have to add before I'll give my agreement to all this, Haru suddenly stated, directly invading Rias' mind without her permission or knowledge until it had happened. Her shock was visible, as if never expecting her pretty head was beyond cracking, and Haru relished upon it. If you ever think of leading my two idiots with your beguiling, devilish charm, such as but not limited to, entering my brother's bathroom while he's showering, or sleeping next to him buck naked, then you and I will have a severe problem. I'm warning you not as a threat, but as their sister, Gremory. I'm sure you can understand. Rias bristled and swallowed. While it was true she did all of those to motivate her pawn as well as making sure his wounds were healed, and in a way, leading him on, she was indeed aware it had overstepped her boundary, a boundary set by human morals, that is. That Issei he must have bragged about it to his siblings, though there were no concrete proofs as of yet. There were no concreted proofs that denied their blood relation either. For now, Rias gave them the benefit of doubt. Because these two were not regular people, Sojiro's complete lack of magical energy was unlike her pawn's. Even Issei had an inkling of it. Ordinary people possessed at least a smidgen as well. This man had none. Zilch. Haruyuki, on the other hand, had an abundance of it. She even talked to her without needing to keep her eyes open, which she had just now reopened just to give Rias a stern stare that told her that yes, indeed, her mind had been invaded successfully. That spoke enough of Haruyuki's mastery over arcane arts. Nevertheless, now that the cat's been wrenched out of the bag, Rias supposed she should figure out other measures to raise her pawn well, preferably in manners that wouldn't upset this rather terrifying sister of his. Geez, Issei, how come you're so adorable yet your siblings give me shivers? Clearing her throat and reclaiming her composure, Rias sent a nod over towards Haru. I understand. Do you prefer cash, check, or something else of the same monetary value? Cash only, Haru immediately said, just as bright yet warm crimson lights shone the room, stemming from the pentagram mentioned at the very start of their visit. Out came a tall girl with an impressively long ponytail that flowed nearly all the way down to her ankles, kept afloat by a giant orange ribbon resting atop of her head. I'm home, Akino said along with a playful giggle. Era? We have guests? Ah, Akino. Welcome back, Rias greeted as her queen approached the sofas, blissfully unaware of the look of surprise from one of the twins as they saw the newly arrived devil. Might I introduce you to my queen? Hinajima Akino, Akino hummed with a friendly smile, bowing her head politely. You must be Issei-kun's siblings he was talking about for the past hours. It's a pleasure to meet you. Pleasure's all ours, Suji said, used to his role as the approachable guy while Haru seemed keen on retaining her silence, replying only with a nod. Many nods were had this day. Say Issei, so which one of these two are your types? They all are. Ha! Spoken like a true man. You rock, bro. Suji laughed heartily. He would give his lil bro a quick fist bump for being so upfront. But Issei was standing a bit too far, so he settled on giving him the okay hand sign, followed by a chef's kiss. But in reality, he was purposely checking upon the girl's reaction to his joke. He was glad to find that they were giggling along, simply entertained by Issei's extreme honesty and lack of shame instead of showing any sign of being repulsed. If the latter was the case, then he'd have to tell his brother the hard truths, or rather, wait for either of the two to break his brother's heart, so he could shatter their bones in return without feeling so bad. No Satans could intimidate him. As powerful as Satan Lucifer was, there had been no records of Surzek's Lucifer being able to stand toe-to-toe or beat a god-tier entity. Simply rumors and that bullshit top 10 strongest beings tier list Azazel made up long ago. Suji was a firm believer of you're only as strong as the strongest opponent you've beaten. And so far, there's no one they couldn't incapacitate, or decapitate. Their informal meeting was put to a close not long after, but the sun had set by the time they were done with the devils. Haru specifically had telepathically requested to leave, and him being the considerate older twin, as well as knowing something's either off or Haru just wanted to get out of that place because she couldn't tolerate the Gremory no more, bade his goodbyes and bumped the fists of his lil bro. Haru gave him a big hug, and told him to be careful doing his devil stuff. Both of you guys are crazy badass, not gonna lie. I was fanboying a bit when you did all that talk. And now please get along with Bucho, they're my friends, and I hope you can be theirs too. Neither of them could make such promises this soon, so the best they could was give Issei a non-committal of course. Personally, Suji didn't have anything against the Gremory or the devils. His past bad experience was just him weaseling out Ria's interrogation. But the Rias girl knew what she wanted and how to get it, and he could respect that. The same couldn't be said to Haru, however, as she despised that sort of cunningness. It was the reason why she was so adept at detecting others' bullshit, and why she was more feared than him. He might be the muscle and sometimes the brain thanks to his streetwise, but Haru had always been the mastermind, always a step ahead of whoever they were hired to kill or shut down. Temporarily or permanently. Being able to read her opponent's mind certainly helped too. Magic was such bullshit. Good thing he was immune to all that crap. Sure, Haru could blow up an entire mountain, but could she catch a fly with a pair of toothpicks? Didn't think so. She might think it was stupid and useless, but Suji thought it was neat, and that was all that mattered to him in his petty sibling rivalry. Stepping outside the grand entrance of the school, onward to his motorcycle, which was nowhere near the school, by the by, since he had to park his bike at a nearby cafe instead, which was at least 100 meters walk from the school gate, Suji finally gave out his summary as he lit up a smoke. That went well. They seem to like our lil bro just fine, but maybe that's me. Her hair's gorgeous though, holy hell. Haru thought otherwise, unfortunately. First off, she'd casted a magic spell on Rias to be more receptive. She'd rather not have her talkative twin to waste his words on that devil. The second she could agree with. And Haru was unlike her brother that tended to crack jokes and make light of all things. Christ, Suji, we forgot about her. You gotta stop thinking I can shove my thoughts inside your head like you do, sister. Ugh, just text me, you idiot. Haru rolled her eyes because he had ruined the tension. As they both drew out their phones, Haru continued her message telepathically regardless. That girl. Doesn't she remind you of someone? Her phone vibrated and lit up. Haru glanced down. Bakujiro, what? Who? Akino Himejima. That name doesn't ring any bells? Did you seriously forget about her? Bakujiro, you know I'm shit at remembering names' faces. You're so hopeless, Suji, she's barracules. That stopped him dead on his tracks. He gave her a glance, a pensive look as ghastly smoke obscured his eyes, before moving along down the empty street. Bakujiro, oh, a sigh leaked out from her lips. This might get icky, I'm worried. Not for us, but for Issei. I think he's too careless around them. If she wanted to hurt us, she could dash. Her phone vibrated before she could complete her sentence. Bakujiro, I'll handle it before it gets blown out of proportion. Bakujiro, trust me. That 2 words eased her worry enough that Haru could place it at the back of her mind for now. Still, it nibbled at her thoughts all the way back to their house. But her worry was not without reason. They had taken Shuri Himejima from Akino, after all. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below. And turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow the DanzyDanz for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.